The following educational lecture will introduce you to a revolutionary nutritional breakthrough that lead researchers consider to be the missing link to optimal health for both humans and animals. This incredible supplement is called MSM. As of 1997, there were 16 U.S. government patents issued on MSM, and it has been discussed at major scientific conferences around the world, including the New York Academy of Sciences. MSM has been documented in numerous studies to treat many common health problems, including its use for allergies, especially due to those uninvited guests in your bed, the dust mites. MSM has also been used for other uninvited guests, including headaches, arthritis, stomach problems, skin problems, and lung dysfunction. Research has also proven that MSM improves athletic performance, is an immune strengthener, and is a tremendous energy booster. Please enjoy this startling new information from Mr. Bill Rich, an expert on the benefits of MSM.
MSM is actually nothing but a nutritional sulfur. Man doesn't make it. It is in the ocean, and that's where it comes from. It comes down in rainwater, and so it's in a fresh blade of grass. And you may have noticed dogs going out and chewing on a blade and sucking on it. Cats will eat your houseplants. You break the aloe vera leaf and you put it in the burn and it takes the sting out and you don't blister or scar. Wheatgrass juice makes people feel better. That's all MSM. The reason the dog doesn't graze, he just picks a blade here and there, is the older blades have already lost it through evaporation. It's so water soluble, when the moisture evaporates, the MSM is gone. It goes with that. When dogs go deficient, they get itchy skin and they dig till they bleed. That is not a flea allergy. It's MSM deficiency. When you see people with red welded skin and it itches and they're digging a lot, that is MSM deficiency. Birds that are in cages where they're fed nothing but dried seeds and they can't get to the leaves will pull their feathers out to relieve the itch. When they get bald, they really suffer because they don't have anything else to hurt to stop the itching. And it just drives them, but out in real life, they don't pull the feathers out. Only birds are in cages. Well, the vitamin pill people miss it. MSM is the third largest ingredient in all living things. You're made up of water, salt, and a nutritional sulfur that's called sulphonyl. Your vitamin pill people were looking for chemical sulfurs. They found so little of this in your food chain that they didn't know it was important. They found lots of sulphur. Now, sulphur you tear open and you put it in a wound and it burns the tissue and cauterizes. Sulfides they put in your cornflakes that poisons them. So you can leave them on the sink 6 months and nothing will eat them, except people. Dumb things. Sulfates they put in your meat. We're allergic to sulfas, sulfides, and sulfates. Those are chemical sulfurs. Sulphonyl is a nutritional sulfur, and the reaction is as different to the chemical sulfurs as water is to gold. The way they found it is it ran out of the paper pulp. Has anybody been here near a paper mill? Did you notice you could smell it about 5 miles away? That was a solvent called dimethyl that ran out of the paper pulp. And it locked on to the nutritional sulfur and kept it from evaporating. Crown Zellerback used to scoop it out of the water and spray it on dirt roads to try and get rid of it, but deer went out like holes in their roads, so it wasn't a good way to get rid of it. They were running their roads. So they took it to Dr. Jacobs and Hirschler's at the Oregon State Health Sciences University and said, "What is this?" He says, "That's DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide. 1 drop in your big toe, you feel great, you smell like you're dead, but nobody's sure how dead. When you park in front, we know you've arrived." It was not very socially acceptable. So he worked at trying to separate the sulfur from the stinky solvent. Finally he found he could oxidize it. And when he oxidized it, it would crystallize and separate, and when it crystallized, it goes into its natural pure form. And it was stable, so we could eat it, we could store it, and we could use it. Well, as long as it's a pure food and we can add it to the diet, the problem is every time they wash, dry, steam, homogenize, pasteurize, or cauterize their foods, it's gone. Now, if you think about it for a minute, when the pioneers came out here, they didn't have any drugstores, but they lived fairly well. Now, how many of your friends can get by a whole week without something from a drugstore? Some of us are vegetarians, some of us are meat and potato eaters, and some take vitamins, some people don't take vitamins. But everybody's sick. Well, what was the common item? Where were we missing the boat? Well, MSM is actually your flexible bond between protein. When a cell dies and a new cell takes its place without the new cell attaches, but becomes rigid. That causes skin to bend and not straighten out, so it's called wrinkles. Cracking skin, scar tissue, hardening of arteries, and emphysema are all MSM. Now let me talk about vitamin C for a minute, because every time you create a new molecule of flesh, you destroy one of vitamin C. When you have a lot of damage, you need lots of vitamin C to rebuild the new flesh. If you start to go deficient, then things get built thinly. If you have a certain number of bricks, you can make a short, stocky wall or a long, thin wall. The only way you can make it different is you got to go get more bricks. Eventually, if you're deficient enough on vitamin C, you get a condition called scurvy. Do you remember that in school? You're so weak internally, you rupture, you bleed to death. So sailors sucked on limes to get their vitamin C, and they were called limeys. Well, strokes, heart attacks, varicose veins, spider veins, chronic nosebleed, and bruising are all related. Weak veins and arteries. You break one in the head, it's a stroke. Break one in the chest, it's a heart attack. Cut one out of the leg, sew it in the chest, it's a stopgap. Because if this one's weak, that one's weak. It's only a matter of time, unless you start building them strong and thick. But where adding vitamin C will reverse and make the veins and arteries strong and thick, without MSM to bond with it, it's leathery. You don't get good nutrition through the walls. You don't get toxins out. It has a leathery surface that doesn't permit what they call osmosis, where the fluids flow in and out of the veins easy. They also lose their flexibility, and then they're called hardened arteries. And if they expanded and they can't contract, then they're varicose spider veins. Okay, now let me talk about emphysema for a minute. Smoking does not cause emphysema. Dogs get it, horses get it, and they never smoke. It contributes to the appearance of it because these hot gases are burning your lung tissue. When you smoke day in and day out, you're killing lots and lots of cells. And if you run deficient on vitamin C, the lungs get thin and weak. Without the MSM, they've lost their flexibility, so when they try and expand, they tear. Then you develop keloids. Now, a lot of times you get a cut and it heals and there's no sign of any cut. Next time you get a cut and you have an ugly looking mess, it's called a keloid scar. That's lack of vitamin C and MSM. When a welder is welding two pieces of metal together, the right temperature and the right alloys, it flows together, you have a seamless weld, and it's beautiful. So if it sputters and spits, it gobs it on the surface, you can hit it with a hammer and it flakes off. Called slag. It makes an ugly weld that tacks it together. If you don't have enough MSM and vitamin C and you have a lot of damage, it'll tack it together with something. Given time, if you have enough MSM and vitamin C, the scar tissue flows down and goes away. If you don't, you just have enough to maintain it. It keeps gobbing it on to keep it together. I'm a perfect example of that taking place. In 1970, when I was working with our coin-operated TV chairs that we developed at our home in all the bus terminals and airports, I was taking one up to San Francisco for the UL to test it. I ran across a wrecker sitting broadside the freeway outside of Tulare in a rainstorm with no lights and no flares out. When my lights picked him up, I was so close that on the water, when I was braking, I kept getting on top of the water and planing in this Dodge A100 van. So I kept pumping her down, trying to come to a stop, but I elected to hit the wrecker because I couldn't see which way the cables were strung out. I didn't know where the workers were, and I didn't want to take the cable or the workers. Well, I got down to 15 miles an hour when I hit him, but the frame of the van went right underneath the side, so the soft nose came back and hit me. The engine sitting right here caught on fire. The engine compartment turned cherry red. It charcoaled me. For 20 minutes I was grabbing things and putting them between me and the heat. And it charcoaled it, and I'm charcoaled from here down to here, clear to the bone. They spent 6 months sewing me together. Now, the tendon behind my knee didn't burn into that, saved my leg, but it burnt the flesh away from us. When they grasped me, the skin went down out around it and back down, so it looked like a cord underneath a piece of paper. I was flat. I was purple. I was leathery, like you see people with burns in their necks. You turn the head and its toes. And I had 65 feet of grafting marks clear along the dotted line. 13 years ago, a veterinarian said, try this white powder. If you sniff it, your nose heals. You don't get high. It's not a drug. 3 days later, I could outmarch my troops. I mentioned I'm a command sergeant major in the Oregon State Defense Forces. I'm 62. I can outwork my kids. There's many of them that can keep up with me. And my son taught me into taking up skydiving last summer. And at 4,000 feet, you look down and say, can't hurt. No matter what happens, it ain't going to hurt. But for 17 years, I kept saying, if I can get by another 6 months and not be hand-fed in a nursing home, I've done good. Because I was so allergic to pollen, I was popping 8 pills a day for hay fever. My aspirin was down to once every 15 minutes to breathe. I was so addicted to it. Well, and not only did my pain go away, but we used lotion to get rid of Dr. Roger Bell's carpal tunnel. Because when you eat it, it's going in the kidney, the liver, wherever the body wants it. And he wanted to concentrate it right in his wrist so he could get rid of it without having to have his wrist cut. In 2 weeks, the carpal tunnel was gone. Then I got thinking about it. Hey, I don't have enough blood vessels in this flat area to hardly keep the skin alive. So I rubbed the lotion in at night when I went to bed. It went underneath the skin and met with the vitamin C and started to build new flesh, new collagen. It filled in, and I turned around with all the new blood vessels. I turned pink. Now to 65 feet of grafting marks and down to about 1.5 inches right through here, and it's getting hard to see. I'm getting handsome almost. But you can see a different texture here, but when you feel it, you cannot feel a demarcation line. The skin they grafted was off my chest. They left all 3 hairs so I could prove I was a man. So this doesn't have hair on it. But it's a finer texture, then it's not as porous as the leg skin. So you see a different texture. And this, every 2 weeks, you look at that, it's making changes. It's filling in, and it's getting better and better all the time. At first, it was very slow healing. There wasn't enough blood vessels to do much healing. But as they build in, it started to accelerate and accelerate and accelerate. Now, also, the lungs become leathery, and you don't get good oxygen through the lungs. That's full-blown emphysema. Mr. Booth couldn't walk across the room and change his TV channel without being out of breath. He had his atomizer, breather, and he had his oxygen tank right next to him. He's 72. 3 months after starting him on the MSM, I talked him into joining my reserve unit as a desk sergeant to give him something to do and get him thinking about other things. 6 months later, he was marching an hour with us. After a year, he became inactive. He was working full-time shipping clerk for sporting goods and part-time security guard. He had no time to play with us anymore. Now, right off the bat, the first thing you do is you start getting more oxygen through the membranes faster and easier, so you get a lot of immediate relief. In about a week, if you can't walk across the room, you can usually walk about a half-mile, rest, and walk another half-mile. But it's going to take at least a couple of years of the old cells dying and new cells taking their place, gain a remission. But you want to take enough that every time a cell dies, you're getting a good, healthy cell. If you take it in spurts, you're going to have some good, some bad, and it's not going to be the steady reversal. So this is why a person should continue on with it over a period of time. Now, diverticulosis is where the colon has lost its flexibility. It's not pulsing good. It's not moving the pieces along. It's become leathery. You're not getting good nutrition to the walls. The feces slows down. It gets dry and turns into a clayish material. Then it hangs up in the pockets in the colon. Then we're up to high enemas, metamucil, roughage, and things to try and break it out to clean out the colon. Well, you add MSM, and it fills the pockets in, where it's a Teflon-type coating the pieces can't hang on to, puts the flexibility back into it so pulse is good, makes it permeable so you get a lot of nutrition through the walls. Diverticulosis is nothing but symptoms of MSM vitamin C deficiency. If you guys have the vitamin C and MSM, it just automatically corrects the problem. See, these problems are all a deficiency of vitamin C and MSM. Have you ever heard of people when the weather changes, their big toe hurts? Okay. A gentleman was asking about certain pain problems. There's a lot of big words: rheumatoid, osteo, bursitis, tendinitis, hip dysplasia. What's common with them all is it hurts. Okay, your cell is like a balloon full of water. When the outside pressure drops and the membrane around that cell is leathery, the inside pressure is going to make it do what? Expand, which is inflating. When a balloon inflates, that's called inflammation. There's very few nerves in a bone. Almost all pain comes from soft tissue. Okay, MSM doesn't shut the nerve off like aspirin. It makes the cell permeable so the water freely flows through the cell wall, taking toxins out, getting nutrition in, so it's healing. This is why lactic acid, you squeeze out of the muscles and you go out and play baseball or unload 40,000 pounds of dog food or something stupid. It goes back, it crystallizes and goes back in like sandpaper and hurts for a couple days. An extra teaspoon of MSM, the lactic acid won't crystallize and flushes, and you never get sore muscles. That's why I can outwork my kids. There's none of them that can keep up with me. See, dogs and animals, their metabolism, their bodies work the same way. They have candida, they have aches and pains, they get hip dysplasia, arthritis, they get cataracts. A dog that can't get to his feet from arthritis or hip dysplasia, he has to be lifted to his feet. Usually in 4 days he's running down stairwells. A friend of mine, Bob Graham, he makes the canine carriages. You put on your dog, you sit in it, say giddy up, and he pulls you around the park. His German Shepherd had hip dysplasia so bad he was going to put her to sleep 4 years ago. Put her on MSM and vitamin C, and this last summer the Miniature Horse Club challenged him to a race, and his dog won 3 out of the 4 races. So he's not ready to go down yet. Okay, the body heals itself. Now MSM makes that cell so permeable, it'll kick a hangover in 20 minutes. Alcohol is trapped in the cell, and the cells are dying of oxygen starvation, and that's really what a hangover is, a dying cell. MSM kicks the alcohol out and gets oxygen in so quick, you don't have as many cells die. And people that are on 3 or 4 teaspoons a day of MSM tell me when they go drinking they can't even get a decent buzz on. It's a waste of good booze. I don't drink, so you have to take their word for it. But it doesn't stay in long enough to kill that many cells to make it go down. Now, your amino acids, methane, cysteine, lysine, and all the rest are all sulfur bonders. And without the sulfur, they're not complete. They're the building blocks of the body. They build glands, and that puts out hormones and enzymes that are thermostats for your chemical production. When you're not controlling your chemicals right, you develop too much stomach acid, you have ulcers. Tagament covers up symptom. MSM corrects problem. Usually in 3 days they're off the tagament. After 30 days can eat a Mexican dinner with jalapenos. Then women, when they have enough MSM, don't have the headaches, the cramps, the nausea, or the heat flashes when they hit a monthly cycle. Because their glands are working right and they go in and out of cycle smoothly. They don't kick in with such a shock that it upsets their whole metabolism and causes them the symptoms they have. Dr. Joanna Kane in Santa Monica had migraine headaches once a week for 30 years. She was in the middle of a headache, recovering, or starting one. She now has been about 9 months without any headaches except she had one, but it was so low-keyed, she said she just ignored it. Diabetics that have been on the needle 5 or 6 years, usually in about 4 months are self-regulating or starting to. See, in Australia, the Aborigines, when they came in from the outback, invariably became diabetic. They go back to the outback, the diabetes go away. The doctors there wrote books, and you get copies of them, writing about processing of foods being related. Well, they're right and they're wrong. When the guy went in the outback, what they missed was he didn't have any water to spare, so he'd pull this out of the ground, shake the dirt off, and eat it, and he wouldn't wash it. He was getting his MSM in the outback, so his diabetes go away. Go back in town, everything was washed, dried, steamed, homogenized, pasteurized, and cauterized, and he'd become a diabetic again. It's that simple. Now, MSM is no more toxic than water. You cannot overdose or hurt yourself with it. It is the third largest ingredient in all living things. And it also is constantly going through your pores like salt. It takes the free radicals and foreign proteins out of your body so your allergies go away in 4 or 5 days to foods and pollens. It's constantly cleaning. The only problem we have is some people are so toxic and their cells have been so leathery for so long, they've got a lot of poisons in there. And when this suddenly opens them up and they run out with a rush, you can get a headache, a little muscle soreness, sometimes a little skin rash, sometimes itchy skin from these toxins trying to get out in a big hurry. Now, Alzheimer's is really a buildup of metallic poisoning in the brain. Lithium, salts, and things like this, aluminum, get in there and lay across synapses so your electricity doesn't go to the right path and you're confused, you can't think straight. The brain barrier has become leathery and you're not getting good nutrition through the brain barrier, you're not getting the toxins out. Cholesterol is another thing that people are very concerned about. Butter melts at room temperature. When you eat it, it can melt inside your body and it can go into the veins, it can go in the cells, and it can come back out. Now, when the veins are leathery, they're trapped in there. And it builds up until you have a major problem. Your body will break it down slowly and get rid of it. Now, Dr. Burgess's receptionist husband was so bad, they took him to the doctor, and they said, give me $5,000. They took a little balloon, stuck it in his veins, squeezed the grease to the side so the blood could get through. They didn't take the grease out. They just squeezed it to the side. So when you come up with another $15,000, we'll start on the other side, and we'll actually go down the side and get good circulation to his leg. Dr. Burgess put him on MSM and vitamin C, and 8 months later he went in there, and his cholesterol count was lower than the average person. Now, if I go to 7-Eleven and I get a kielbasa sausage and I put the hot cheese on to glue the jalapenos and onions in place, how much MSM am I getting? I love barbecued spare ribs. Today I went and had a big Mexican dinner with all that grease. And my cholesterol in the last 3 years, every time I check the blood test, is lower than the average person's. Your body cleans that out, gets rid of it, you don't have the problem if your body's working right. It's only when the veins and arteries are leathery and you're not getting a good transfer of nutrition to then these things build up on you. MSM is so good at locking up foreign proteins, they use it for an anti-venom. When a horse is bit by a snake, you can't tell what type of snake it was, and the wrong anti-venom to kill the animal. So use MSM in distilled water and inject it around the snake bite and locks up the foreign protein and flushes it, and that's the end of it. MSM can and will stop the allergic reaction to bee stings, which are foreign protein, mosquito bites, flea bites, black widow spiders, and brown recluse spiders. And where they didn't take it internally, they just used the lotion on a dog up in Utah. A Great Dane came in with a big bump on its nose and it was in a lot of pain, so the lady didn't know what to do, rubbed the lotion on. He came back half hour later and wanted some more. She did it about 6 to 8 times a day for the next 4 days. Then she took it into the vet and he shaved the nose and found it had been bit by a large rattlesnake. The lotion drove enough MSM in there to neutralize that, even though she was giving him a little bit in his food, just a powder, but she didn't think about that at the time. But it neutralized the foreign proteins. It has a side effect we cannot control, so we want to warn you about it. Your fingernails go twice as fast, they become very tough, ridges go away, hair stops splitting on the ends, gets thicker and grows faster. See, your fingernails have more sulphur in it than any other cells in your body, but they're not critical. So when your kidney needs it, it gets it. So when you see people with thick, woody, soft, brittle, layering, splitting, developing ridges, hair splits on the ends, gets thin, and comes out when you shower, Those are some of the first symptoms of sulfur deficiency in diet. Now, some of your vitamins and minerals you don't utilize without MSM available are pantothenic acid, selenium, calcium, manganese, germanium, CoQ10, vitamins A, C, D, and E. All of your inner enzymes and all amino acids are sulfur bonders. Some people have symptoms. The doctor gives you a little magnesium. It does the job. Next person they give it doesn't seem to help much. They didn't have the MSM to utilize it. Some of your vitamins and minerals that may or may not be sulfur bonders, we know that when the cells are leathery, they can't get in, the toxins can't get out, they're not going to do you a lot of good. So when those cells are permeable and they can get in and the toxins can come out, it's going to do a more efficient job. So it takes all nutrition and it helps it get in and do its job properly. So if you're allergic to penicillin, Motrin, or steroid type or arthritic drugs, if you take the MSM an hour before, you become drug tolerant. It normalizes the body so it uses medication properly. It does not work against anything. Anybody here ever seen anybody or know anybody that's been taking prednisone for a long time? They become grayish looking, they get leathery looking, and you walk up and take the side of your finger and just tap them like that and they bleed internally and they bruise. Prednisone shuts down collagen production. It shuts down flesh production. After a while, it gets so bad you're really almost on the verge of scurvy or a stroke. All it takes is just something to cause those veins to rupture and you're in deep trouble. You've got to get them off the prednisone, get them on lots of vitamin C and MSM, some beta-carotene and some vitamin E. Other nutrition as well as just the vitamin C. But basically, without the MSM and vitamin C, you're wasting the other things. It just can't do the job. Because remember, water, salt, and MSM. If you have enough of that, all the other things you give it will do their job right and you can rebuild. And the body heals itself. Now, Candida has been a big mystery. There's a lot of books written on it, and usually if you look at them, there's a chapter that says how to learn to live with it and how to teach your family to learn to live with it. Who wants to learn to live with it? Get rid of it. Okay, you have acidophilus in your stomach that digests your food. You have a yeast that lives in the colon called Candida. It keeps bad bacteria out. It lives on the food created by acidophilus. People go to the doctors a lot are chronically sick. Those that very seldom go to the doctors very seldom get sick. Because the antibiotics kill not only the bad, but they kill your good bacteria. The pH of the body gets out of kilter. The Candida is hungry, so it starts spraying. So women get in the vagina a lot. That's a yeast infection. That's Candida. The white coating on people's tongues when they're sick. That's Candida yeast growing on the tongue. It's just a yeast growth. When it gets in the ears and the eyes, the doctors change the name of it. Now it's thrush. That's Candida yeast. If it gets in the brain, it keeps the pH out of balance, causes nerves to trigger uncontrollably, and then they change the name of it again. That's epilepsy. If it gets in your bloodstream, you eat food, you digest it, but you don't assimilate because the Candida is stealing it. Now your glands aren't getting their vitamins and minerals, and you start developing allergies. Some people are even allergic to perfume. Odors. You open up a lemon and they get sick. You don't have any energy. Now the doctors change the name of it again. Now it's an incurable disease called chronic fatigue. If there were incurable diseases, we'd have all died 6,000 years ago. This is why I love a doctor to tell you you got 6 months to live. He's saying, everybody's got your symptoms that I treat die. Do what I tell you, exactly as I tell you. You don't have to worry about a will. I'll have all your money. And you're not going to be able to sue me because I'm going to keep my promise. I want a second opinion quick. I want 20 years. Tell me how to go about it. We may miss, but we're going to try. Okay, Candida is a living organism. It digests food like you do. Now, if you think of an engine, you put fresh air and gas in the engine, and it burns and it pushes the piston down. Now, when it comes up, you have to get that burnt gas out or you can't get any fresh in. So if you have a plugged exhaust and you can't get it out, you lose energy. When your body is burning energy, it creates toxins. When you're creating them faster and you can get rid of them, they back up on you and you get tired. When you go to sleep, your metabolism slows way down, you finish throwing the toxins off, so you wake up refreshed. If you're doing a little garden work where you're actually perspiring and getting rid of the toxins to your pores, you're not normally as tired as if you're doing computer work. You're burning the same amount of energy, but you're not getting rid of it. MSM makes the cells so permeable, you get rid of toxins so much faster. Some people don't want to take it after 5 o'clock because they do weird things about 9 o'clock. They're hanging curtains, ironing, doing things they don't want to do. They get up in the morning, they roll out of bed, there's no aches and pains, and you feel great all day long. But now if you quit taking it, because you're prone to break down in a certain pattern when you go deficient, the old pains come back. Now that you've been without them, they're new pains to you. You may have lived with them for 10 years and ignored them. And you just pretend like they're not there, but they are. Now, Candida digests food like you do, and it puts out toxins like you do. Those toxins on top of your toxins back up on you, and it can stimulate 80 different diseases you don't have. When it stimulates strep throat, what's the doctor do for you? Goes down the acid office, it gets stronger, then it stimulates pneumonia, and what's the doctor do for you? Then a sinus infection. He keeps the pH out of balance, increases the growth of the Candida. Every 3-4 weeks you have a cold, you have a flu, you don't feel good, you're short-tempered. Is this making sense to you? I hate big words. If you can't explain it in simple terms, you don't understand it. Candida is a living yeast. It can turn any bread you eat directly into blood alcohol. Yeast and hops and things make alcohol. Blood alcohol is a blood sugar. Yeah, Ripley's, believe it or not, it talks about in 1890 there was a man that could eat 10 slices of bread and fall down drunk. They thought it was mysterious. All it was, he had a bad Candida yeast infection. Blood alcohol is a blood sugar. When the body has adjusted to a high blood sugar content and it suddenly drops, you go into a mood swing like a diabetic. So you crave bread, soda pops, candy, or alcohol to kick the blood sugar back up. So when you go into a bar, you'll see lots of pretzels, breadsticks, popcorn around because it makes the patrons feel better because it keeps their blood sugar high. Almost everybody that's alcoholic has a Candida yeast infection. If you want to see if somebody has a Candida yeast infection, put out a potato chip, piece of candy, or a cookie and turn your back. They'll steal it. When they're driving, they have soda pops, cookies, corn curls. When they watch TV at night, they have cookies, and they surround themselves with junk food. They crave something like the dog chewing on the blade of grass and sucking the MSM out. They don't know what it is. All they know is that the junk foods make them feel a little bit better. It's not correcting problems, but it keeps the blood sugar high. Think of the body this way. Mosquitoes don't make swamps. Swamps don't make mosquitoes. Without a swamp, you don't have mosquitoes. A fly swatter can beat them into submission till your arm gets tired. Then they're going to overwhelm you if you don't drain that swamp. Bacteria and viruses live in your body all the time, and pollens, and they don't bother you. Until the body becomes a swamp or a breeding ground, then they overwhelm you. Antibiotics are a fly swatter. They're treating symptoms, not cause. Because if you don't change the swamp, by the time the antibiotic wears off, they're going to overwhelm you again. So why worry about symptoms? Let's get down to cause. When the body's pH is normal, your glands are working properly, Candida cannot live except in the colon where it belongs, and it dies out. Has anybody ever eaten a grapefruit that just fell off the tree? Anybody's been in Arizona cannot go there without wanting grapefruit. You pick them up, and you don't just eat the one, you got to have a second one. You squeeze all the juice out of the rind. To get in the store, you're kind of sorry you even bought the dumb thing sometimes, but you eat it because it's supposed to be good for you. Tomatoes, right off the vine, you inhale. You can't get by with one tomato sandwich. Forget the bacon. I mean, just a tomato sandwich. But when you go to the grocery store and you get one that was picked so green you can play ping pong and not dent it, they keep it in a warehouse for 6 months, put a gas on it, turn it red. You take it and slice it and you put it on your sandwich and you bite into it and you think somebody left a piece of cardboard in there somewhere. There is no nutrition, there is no flavor. There is no food value. See, the last couple of days of ripening is when the starches turn into nutrition, flavor, and color. The Lord made it that way because the bugs would eat it and it'd never get to mature if it came on too soon. Now, if the bugs don't want it, you shouldn't want it. You've got to beat the bugs to it. Because there's nutrition that last couple of days of ripening. That's why you go out and look for a fruit stand and you try to get the guy that just went out and picked it during the day. Corn right off the plant. Sometimes you can almost eat it right off the cob without even heating it. And if you do heat it, you just put enough body temperature in it that it's not cold and you love it. You don't want to overcook it because as the moisture goes, a lot of your nutrition goes with it and your flavor's not the same. This is where we get our nutrition. See, your whole life changes when you feel good. So when you're working day in and day out and you're slowly getting beat down, because there's a lot of pressures in this particular time and era that we're into right now. And boy, I tell you, when you ache and you're just dragging yourself along and you're getting by day to day, it becomes a real struggle. But boy, when you feel good, every day is a new adventure. What's going to happen today? It can't be standard. If it don't happen, I'm going to go out and make it happen. My computer programmer's wife is 360 pounds, diabetic. She can hardly go from room to room. She was blind enough in one eye, they told her the nerve was dead. She'd never see again. Well, about 3 years ago, I gave her some MSM and said, please take it. She says, it's not doing me any good. So finally, about 6 months ago, I said, by the way, how much MSM do you have left? Well, I got a half a bottle. I got lots. In 2 years, she hadn't used half of it. She didn't like the taste of it. Well, finally, I gave her the capsules and some vitamin C in capsules. She finally started taking it. In 2 weeks, she had light around the peripheral of her eye, and now enough of the blood spots and things had built up in there, which was like looking through a frosted window. It cleared up enough she can see handrails and furniture so she doesn't trip over them. And she has dropped 30 pounds, or 60 pounds. So she is starting to make some improvements and changes because she is taking it, and now she's encouraged enough with it, she isn't going to quit. I told her to take at least 2 teaspoons a day, and I've got one man that takes 6. Remember, it's no more toxic than water, but in his case, he's a landscaper. He's digging, hoeing, shoveling, hitting his shins with a shovel all the time. At night, he does power building, and he hates sore muscles. So he takes 4 teaspoons, but about 9, 10 o'clock, he says he gets tired, he gets a little tendonitis show up, and likes to go dancing. So he chugs like 2 more teaspoons, goes dancing, sleeps 3-4 hours a night, gets up the next morning, he's never tired, never sore. That's his comfort level. I try to take 2 teaspoons a day. I never get colds, never get flus. I can outwork my kids. So I quit taking it for about 30 days. Then I go out and mow a lawn. Boy, my eyes are watering, my nose is itchy, I'm trying to scratch the back of my throat with my tongue, and I know I'm in deep trouble. I go ahead and chug a lug 2 or 3 teaspoons, and in the next day, it's all gone. Normally, animals crave it. If you sprinkle it on their food, though it has not enough taste or smell to eat it out of your hand, sprinkle it on the food when they get through to you, you won't find any crystals on the bottom of the dish. If, for some reason, they do get fussy, dissolve it in a little water, put it in an eyedropper and squirt it in their mouth. If you're giving them in the capsules, which is fine, watch them. If they lick the end of the nose, they've swallowed it. If they don't lick the end of the nose, they're hiding it. Yeah, they'll have it on the tongue or in their cheek. And they won't. But if they lick the end of the nose, they swallowed it. If you have an open cut, put the lotion right in and tape it together, and it heals so quick, the next day it's all tacked together. You don't even need a stitch. The skin has been stretched and it's lost its flexibility. You put that on and it puts the flexibility back in and it just slows down and goes away. This is why wrinkles go away. You put it in a third-degree burn, like you break the leaf of the aloe vera and put it in the wound, and it takes the burn out and you don't blister. It's the MSM is healing. Put this in, it does the same thing. Brown spots, black spots, skin tumors, they slow down, moles. See, your body makes new cells every day. If you can get an old bad cell to die and replace it with a good cell, you're in remission. So to kill the bad cells, you use chemotherapy and radiation. The only problem is you can't tell if good from bad, and it goes in like a fireman with a hatchet, starts chopping things up and doesn't know when to quit. It kills lots of good and your immune system is weakened. And you need your immune system to heal. Some people on chemotherapy get a remission, some people don't. Some people on radiation get a remission, some people don't. Some people don't do anything and get a remission. Killing bad cells is treating symptoms. The problem is you're creating unprogrammed cells. You kill a bad cell and replace it with another bad cell, you're treading water and you're not going to win. You've got to work on cause and make nothing but good, healthy, programmed cells. And then you don't care why it dies. As long as it dies and it's been replaced, you're in remission. Mrs. Lemon at the Lemon Tree Nursing Home had throat cancer. She didn't tell me that. She took the MSM for her arthritis. Finally, after 8 months, she made arrangements to have her voice box cut out, and all her in-laws flew in from Florida to say goodbye to her while she could still talk. They gave her an exam, sent everybody home disappointed, except her. They found no cancer. A lady in Portland that had arthritis, her bones were so bad she couldn't walk. She took 3 teaspoons a day right off the bat, and in 4 days started bleeding in the urine. Her doctor checked her and said the urethra is irritated but not infected. 3 weeks later, they took x-rays and they couldn't find any spare calcium in her system anywhere. She dumped it like gallstones through the urethra so big and so fast that it irritated and made it bleed. A lower dosage would have happened more gently and it wouldn't have been. But in 3 weeks, she could dance, she could do anything she wanted. She wasn't complaining. This is going into your cells, makes them flexible and permeable. It's taking the inflammation out, affecting that protein. It's going into your hair. It's helping cancer cells be dissolved. It's getting glands. It's part of your amino acid chain. It binds with your vitamins and minerals. It's detoxifying constantly. Well, how fast do you want to heal? It's like filling potholes in front of your house with a wheelbarrow stand or a teacup. The more you take, the quicker and the more dramatic the effects are going to be. I don't want to scare you, though. Things can change so rapidly. You can get headaches. You can get muscle soreness. Now, Jane Bryant and Katati, for 30 years, had a red welded skin, about a 1/4 inch tall in some areas. She itched. She never got married because nobody wanted to touch her. They thought it might be catching. The doctors, when they came out with cortisone, injected her in his skin every 3 days for 3 years and almost killed her. She used the lotion, her itching went away. She used the powder, and in 20 days she was clear of the red rash, except a couple spots on her chest, and they were flush. Then she started bleeding from the vagina, and her Dr. Weiss checked her and said an old benign tumor was disintegrating. So he took it for a 3-year back pain he had, and in 2 days his back pain was gone. Some people will start to have some pain relief from serious pain within 20 minutes. But it could take a couple of weeks. It depends on how deficient you are and what your own body's priorities are. There's a mental set in some doctors. The red pills are for headaches. The green ones are for the lower back. The purple ones are for the left foot. Some other colors for the right foot. When you take it, it either goes in and shuts nerves down or it doesn't. It's going to go wherever your body wants it. He has no control, and he has no way of tagging it to tell it where to go. So when you take the MSM, your body has its own priorities, and it's going to work. Doris, she's 62 years old, had her back muscles were always in knots. She had chronic headaches. She was constantly going to chiropractor. He put her back in place, give her heat treatments and ultrasound. It would relax them. She'd leave, and about 20 minutes later, they'd just start cramping up on her again. She took 2 teaspoons a day for her headaches. She didn't get any results after 6 months, but she took it very religiously. She had pyorrhea so bad that on the little gauge it was 8. 3 is supposed to be normal. 8, you're in deep trouble. They wanted to pull all her teeth out and put artificial in, but she didn't have the $2,000, so she procrastinated. At the end of 6 months, she went in to get her teeth cleaned. They said, I'm sorry, we've misdiagnosed. Pyorrhea doesn't reverse, and your gums are all down to 3. She called me and says, what's going on? I said, well, your body decided your gums are more important than your headaches, but use all the MSM to plug that hole. Try increasing your dosage. So she did, and the next day she said when she felt the back muscles begin to unknot. At 62, she cleans houses during the day, and she's rebuilding the house she's in, so she's not hurting anymore. I was back east in Illinois back in 1950, and I met a 12-year-old girl, and her skin was so leathery. Every time she bent her fingers, they split open and they bled. She wore gloves all the time so she wouldn't bang them. Her knees and her legs were all the skin was all that real leathery, non-brittle. I didn't know what to say about it. I felt real sorry for this young girl, but I hadn't the foggiest idea. Oh, it was MSM. If she had high doses of MSM, lots of vitamin C, that would have all corrected. You need a reasonable portion of MSM in your diet to become bulletproof. Never get colds, never get flus. Your body's going to use what it needs. You're not wasting it. Because remember, it's a free radical foreign protein scavenger. It's cleaning the blood all the time. But it's only going to stay in roughly 12 hours. That's why we recommend it twice a day. Otherwise, you get a big boost, and then you'd be developing lots of cells that don't have enough MSM. Then you get another boost. But if you take it in the morning and night, during the day it handles a lot of stress. At night does a lot of repair work, and you get more steady healing. If you've got all these cells in your lungs to make flexible and permeable, you don't want half of them good and half of them bad. You want to constantly keep reversing it so you're on your feet a lot quicker. And that is MSM.
If you would like more information on MSM, be sure to get Dr. Earl Mindell's newest book on MSM and contact the person who gave you this tape. Please note that 1 teaspoon of MSM is equal to about 4,000 milligrams of MSM in caplet form. The preceding lecture is not intended as medical advice, but is for educational purposes only. Please consult your nutritionally oriented practitioner for your specific health questions.